Hello everyone and welcome to this another episode of 2D prototyping in Unity. My name is Kasanis. In the last episode we took care of moving the character about. He can move around, he can run around, he can move back and forth anyway. Today I want to continue with that. I want to finish off the last of the moves we're actually going to do with this character. Right now the player has the ability with the A and the D key to be able to move the character left and right, and the character will face the appropriate direction. The last thing I want to be able to do, well, not the last thing, but the last movement thing I want to do with this character is allow him to jump. And we're going to be using the space bar to jump, okay? There's a lot of different ways to make characters jump, and I think we're going to use a method that determines whether or not the character is on the ground. If the character's on the ground, he's able to jump. If he's not on the ground, he can't jump, and he's either falling or he's jumping. And that's really the concept that we're going to be using to build our character in this episode. Like I said, there's lots of different ways of doing this, and what I've decided to do, I saw a technique that was used recently by some of the guys actually at Unity, and I really liked it, and I think we're going to use that technique here. Now, I've simplified it, but I think we're going to use it anyway. Alright guys, so let's get started. There are a few things we need to do to be able to make our character jump. The first thing we have to do is be able to identify what is the ground. What can the character jump off of? Can he jump off the air? Well, if you want to double jump, yes, but we're not going to actually talk about double jumps right now. What can he jump off of? In our case, we really want him to jump off of these platforms, either the platform or the bridge or whatever else we decide is the actual space, the area that the character is going to be playing along. Whatever the map is made up of, that's what they can jump off of. So we're going to have to be able to identify what the character can jump off of. The second thing we have to do is be able to identify when the character is actually on the ground. When is the character on the ground? We have to know that in order to be able to say, yes, you can jump. And the last thing we have to do is build our jump animation techniques in the animator itself. We're going to be going back to the animator and adding additional things in here. Now, the reason I'm quite excited about using the Unity guys' idea for creating the jump is it allows us to introduce a new technique within the animator called the blend tree. So I really want to use it for that reason as well. But for now, let's go through and make the changes necessary within this scene to be able to allow our assets to be able to connect and jump. All right, afterwards we'll take a look at the code. So right now we know that our character has to be able to jump off of these prefabs, right? These things we've made in the last few episodes. I made a long platform, a short platform, and a bridge. And all three of these things here, I want the character to say, yep, when I'm on that, I'm on the ground. So we talked a little bit. Let's take a look at this one here. We talked a little bit previously about the concept of tagging, and I think we tagged the character as, yes, as player. And I told you a tag was used to clean up your scene, to really organize your scene, and to be able to search through things later on and say, well, what else is a player? Show me everything that's a player. And we're going to do the same thing with the platforms. But instead of using a tag, instead of tagging this as ground, what we're going to do instead is we're going to create a new layer. Okay, over here, the layer area. We're going to create a brand new layer. Now, if I've got with a long platform selected, and I click on default, on layer, we can see that we've got a number of different layers that Unity has automatically created for us when we built our project. A default, a transparent FX layer, an ignore raycast layer, water. My mouth is like not working today. I'm sorry, guys. And a UI layer. What we're going to do today, though, we're going to add a new layer. So go down, click the button, Add Layer, and boop, this is going to pop up. And find the first one available if this is a brand new project. And if you've never done this before, then it's going to be Layer 8. And I'm going to call it Ground. Okay? So anything that's on my ground layer, I'm saying my character can jump off of. That's my plan. Anything on the ground layer, my player can jump off of. So I'm going to go to each of these, the long platform, and I'm going to change my layer to Ground. And I'm going to go to my short platform, and I'm going to change my layer to ground. And lastly, I'm going to go to my bridge over here and change my layer to ground. Oh, it already is ground. Cool. Change my layer to ground. Anyway, did I miss one of them? Black bridge, ground. Okay, I must have started with a black bridge. All right, so that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that the long platform, and like all three of those things here, were actually set up to be on the ground. Okay, perfect. Now, we can identify what the ground is. Now we have to identify when we're on the ground. That's our next thing we're going to need to do. And if we take a look over here, we changed our prefab, and the awesome thing about changing your prefabs is it automatically gets sent upwards into all of the things we actually have on the game itself. So that's cool. So you can make massive changes. If I had 15 long platforms, then all those prefabs would have changed, and that's really a lot more useful than having to go in and change each one. Anyway, the next thing we're going to do is be able to identify when the character is touching the ground, and we're going to use a technique. There's several different ways of doing it. You can create a small circle under the character, and the small circle, and say, has this circle intersected another collider? And if so, then we know we're touching something. Or we can make a ray cast. We can do a ray and say, is the ray intersecting another collider? And if it is, then we could say we're on the ground. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. We can even, if we wanted to, go through and say, just use this collider here and say, if this collider is in contact with something, then we're on the ground. We're going to use the first method I mentioned. We're going to actually build a small circle underneath the character's feet. Every update, we're going to say update, update, update. Every update, build a small circle under the character's feet, and if it's in contact with a collider, that is a ground layer. In the ground layer, we're going to say, we're on the ground, and we can either jump, or we can fall. All right, that's our plan. So what we have to do is be able to identify where the character's feet are. We have to say, where is this circle going to be created? I don't want to create a big circle around the entire character. I just want a little tiny circle right underneath his feet. So what I'm going to do, with my character selected, I've got the character asset selected, I'm going to say create, right here in the hierarchy menu. I'm going to say create. I'm going to say create empty child. And you're going to see that automatically builds an additional game object underneath that character within its hierarchy. And I am going to change this to be named on ground. It doesn't really matter what you call it. Check ground, on ground, ground checker, anything you want. Okay, on ground. Or, maybe I'll call it the ground. I said it doesn't matter, and it doesn't. But the ground, okay? So let's call it check ground. Sorry, it's early in the morning, and I'm acting all fuddled in the head. Anyway, guys, check ground. We're going to call it check ground. And check ground is going to be the location that we draw our small circle or shoot our ray from, or however we decide to do this in code. As an artist, it doesn't really matter. I'm in here, I'm building the stuff, I'm building everything right here, and the coder is going to write the code and say, okay, raycast or small circle, or however you want to do it. The last thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm clicking on right here, boop. I'm clicking on this little tiny square right here, and I'm going to click this green thing. Now what this basically does is it allows me to choose an icon, and you can see it showed up over here. Choose an icon to represent that character or that thing. And basically it's just a visual representation of this game object. And I'm going to move this into place. So right now I can see it's at my default location. It's at the origin of my character, and I'm just going to move it down, so it's approximately at his feet. So right there is pretty good. And this is the location that I'm going to actually draw my circle. Okay? The very last thing we have to do in setting up the character is create the different animations we're going to use. So let's go back and take a look at the sprites. Beep. And this is my Explorer sprites right here. We already used most of these. We've already used the first several for the idle. We used several after that for the run, and we've got 3 left for the animation of the jump. I'm only using 3 frames. I'm using a jump, a fall, and a land. And you know what? You could use many, many more. In fact, you probably should. This is going to look fine. You've already seen it running and jumping and landing. It's going to look fine, but you can make much smoother animation by adding several more frames. This entire thing, I did this the cheapest way I could. I did this absolutely cheap, guys. If you're going to make a good game, take your time, make good assets, nice clean assets that are enjoyable to look at. Not these crappy things I made. Anyway, we've got ourselves 3 different animations in here. Or sorry, 1 different animation made up of 3 different frames. What I'm going to do instead, though, I'm going to break this up into 3 separate animations. 3 entirely separate animations. One is going to be the jump, one is going to be the falling, and one is going to be the land. All right? To do that, it's very, very simple. With our character selected, with my animator in place, with my animation up, with my animation window up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add several new animations to this character. Okay? And to add a new animation, all you have to do is go up to here and say create new clip. So let me show you how to do that again. Right here where it says player idle, that's the default state. Right here there's 2 little up and down arrows. Click those little tiny arrows, boop, and say, well, I'm going to switch over to something else for a minute. I'm going to switch over to animation first because I want them to appear here. So go up in here, little two arrows, click on it, and say create new clip. It's going to say, what's it called? And I'm going to call this one here player jump. All right, just like that. So we can see that we've automatically added a new animation down here, player jump. Perfect. We're going to do this 2 more times. We're going to go back up here, add, create new clip, and we are going to say, oops, make sure I type it right, player fall. All right, and one last time, we're going to say create clip, player land. Okay, so now we've got ourselves 3 new animations down here, and each of these animations have appeared inside the animator. All right, but currently there's nothing associated with them. Now, if you guys remember correctly, the last time we did this, we just simply grabbed and dropped the stuff on the character. That's how we built a new animation. And you can do that when you're selecting more than one frame. But in this situation, because I'm only using a single frame out of each of these areas, I'm only using a single frame, it doesn't do that. If I try, watch what happens if I try and drag and drop this onto the character. Instead of saying, "Oh, it's a new animation," it says, "Oh, I'm adding in a new image." All right, and I don't want that. I don't want to add in a new image. I'm not interested in doing that. I'm interested in adding a new animation. Let me delete this. Delete. Boom. Okay, I want to add in a new animation. So I went through and I added all 3 of these. Now I'm going to go back to my animation window. I'm going to bring up player jump first. There we go. And I'm going to now select my player jump from down here, and I'm going to drag it and I'm going to drop it right here. Boom, and you can see it's going to appear at the first frame. Perfect, that's what I wanted. Let's do exactly, turn this off now. Let's do exactly the same thing with player fall, which is this one. Drop it and stop it. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to say player land, and we're going to drag it and we're going to drop it. There we go. So, and stop it. So when it turns red like that, that's in record mode, and anything you do, anything you adjust or touch is being recorded. All I wanted to do, like I said, was go in and make sure we actually had images associated with this, frames actually associated with it. All right, and we have them for all. So your player run has all of them. All right, so that's all we wanted to do. Okay, so perfect. Now everything is set up to be able to write our code. That's all we really need to do now to be able to in the game itself. And now all that's left to do is the coding. Actually, I lied. There is something else we have to do. we've only actually done half of what we needed to do. Right now we're missing a couple of things. If we go back to our animator, we discussed how we had a number of new states and new animations within here. And I told you that we were going to be using a concept of a blend tree to be able to create our changes in the character's jump, fall, and landing animation. It's not necessarily necessary in this case. It's not necessary in this case. We only have 2 states we're going through this blend, and it doesn't even really blend. But you might, this is easily expandable, okay? The concept these Unity guys put forward is easily expandable. You can put in a dozen different animation states in here, and you'll be able to go through each one of them. We have to add a couple of things. First of all, we have to know when we want to transfer to a new state. And first of all, we've already said that we're either grounded or we're not grounded. And if we're not grounded, we're falling or we're jumping. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a new parameter. So with parameter selected, we're going to use the plus sign, and we're going to add a new bool. And we're going to call it is grounded. All right, is grounded. That's our first one. So if we are grounded, we can run around. If we're not grounded, then we are falling, or we're jumping or falling. All right, we're going to add another parameter, plus sign, and we're going to base, it's going to be a float. We're going to call this one here vertical speed. And basically what we're going to do, this is how a blend works. Right-click inside of your animator window, right-click and say create state, and say from new blend tree. And you're going to get this new node that shows up. And let me change it right away. I'm going to change the name right away. Change the name to jump blend tree. Okay, so it looks like everything else here. It looks like just another state, and that's perfect. What we want to do, let's scroll and put this up here for now, and let's grab our fall and put it up here too. Okay, so basically, we talked this roadmap. We've already built it before. We built it together before, and basically how this works is the player's idling. And whenever someone pushes a button, we have this transition. So we go from player idle, we transfer down here to player run, and the character's running left or right, depending on which button's being pushed. And we stay in here until we let go of the button, at which point we transition along here back to player idle. So we're back in the player idle state. So the only way to ever get to player run is through player idle. That's what this map basically says right now. The only way to ever be running is if we go from player idle. Okay? The jump/fall is a little bit different. We might go to jump/fall for a number of reasons. Let's say we're running and we fall off the edge of a platform to our death, and that is going to be a fall scenario. Someone pushes the space bar and we jump. That's the jump scenario. An enemy hits us and sends us flying. That's another scenario where we could be in idle state and suddenly we're flying in the air. So we want to be able to go from either the idle or the run state, or anything else for that matter, to our jump state up in here. All right, and that's what this little blue note is for, the any state. Okay, so from wherever we are, I'm going to right click, I'm going to click it, I'm going to right click, make transition, and drop it off my blend tree. So no matter what state we're in, we can always go from whatever state to the jump. Okay, as long as our, let's go down here and we're going to say our list of conditions, we're going to add a little plus sign, as long as our is grounded is false. So the second our ground is no longer underneath our feet, we're going to transition into this jump state. Okay? We want to be able to transfer out of this jump state into the player, oh, I don't want player fall in here, I lied. I want it to be player land. Let's move this one up here. We want to go to the player land state, so the player's landing, whenever ground is suddenly true. So make transition from one to the other, and in here, and we're going to click on this, and we are going to say list of conditions whenever our is grounded is true. So transfer along here, stay in here as long as it's false. The second it's true, we pop out. From this location here, we are going to go back into idle. So I'm going to right click, make transition, and go to the idle state. Bam. This one here, we're going to have a simple has exit time. Okay, we're going to leave has exit time. Let's make this much smaller. It doesn't really matter. It's only a single frame, so it doesn't really matter. But it has an exit time, all right? So basically what this is going to do, it's going to say this character's falling or jumping. Transfer over here because he's no longer grounded. Stay in here. Do whatever we're going to do inside the blend tree. And move out along here whenever we've landed. Stay in here for a specific amount of time and then go back to player idle, at which time we can go back and forth in here again. Okay? That is our new animation roadmap, basically. The last thing we have to do is we have to build our jump blend. Okay? So double click. When you double click on that node, we come into this new window. We haven't lost the old one. You can see up here we're currently in, this is basically like a tree, a directory tree, and we are in the jump blend. If we want to go back to the base layer, we can click, double click, brings us back here. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to add in our various states that we can blend between. Okay, we don't want to be using speed for that matter. We want to be using, our parameter is vertical speed. So how fast the character is traveling up and down. That's what we're using. How fast the character is traveling up and down to determine where we are, what we're blending between. So you can either have one or two blends in here. We're going to be using a one-dimensional blend, which means it's only taking one parameter. The next thing we have to do is we have to add our various states in here. So let's add in, add a motion field. And that motion field is going to be, so what it basically did when I did that, it made this new drop down here, and it's saying motion none. It's telling me the threshold and the timing of that animation. What I want to do is I want to come into my animation, I want to find player jump, and I want to drag it, and I want to drop it right there. So you can see the awesome thing is it automatically appeared here. Let's adjust this around a little bit. Why can't I move you? Because I only have one right now, maybe that's why. You can see that automatically appeared right there. And it's allowing me, based on, let's go back to the blend tree for a minute. It's based on some threshold. Well, I only have one, so let me add the second one before I get too excited. Plus, new, add a motion field, and I'm going to add into there player fall and drop it in there. Okay, so now I've got two things that I can blend between. Now I can actually explain this. I've got two things that I can blend between the player jump and the player fall. what we can do is we can go in. I want to take off automate thresholds. We can automatically change how these things blend, and we can see that at right now at 0, whenever vertical speed is 0, we are 100%, or 0 or lower, we're 100% on player jump. And when it's 1, we are 100% on player fall. That's what these threshold values are. Our thresholds, you might have to adjust this slightly depending on what your gameplay is, and you're going to adjust it to look good. But I want to kind of switch back and forth. Basically, I want my player, whenever my player is jumping, when it's greater than 1, and I want it to be falling when my vertical speed is less than 1, so -1. What that means is whenever you jump, your maximum speed is when you first leave the ground, and as gravity drags down on you as you travel upwards, you slow down, slow down, slow down. So as long as our value is above, 1 or greater, it's going to be in the player jump state. And whenever we've hit our vertical speed of 0, and now we're starting to fall downwards again, so it's starting to move downwards, and our vertical speed is going faster in the negative direction. Once it passes -1, we are going to switch states, and we're going to travel into the fall. Okay, so that's basically what this is. There should be a blend of some kind here. To be honest, I don't know if it blends in 2D. I know it'll blend in 3D because it'll actually move the skeleton, and I'm not sure if it blends in 2D or not. But in 3D, basically, oh, maybe we can see it down here. Let's see. Can I see it? See if it blends? No, it doesn't. It just switches. Okay. You can see down there, I'm going up here is my jump, and down here as I start to fall, it goes to my fall state. And that's what we want it to do. All right, based on our vertical speed. Now we are going to write the code that is going to control how all of this is working. You know what, guys? Actually, looking at my timing right now, I think that we are about 20 minutes. And I don't want these videos to go any longer than 20 minutes. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to cut it off. This is our prep for our jump, and we'll take a look at the code in the next episode. And that way you guys can watch this part over and over again if you need to, and then watch the code part over and over again if you need to, without having to watch everything in between. All right, guys? So I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, let me know with a thumbs up. If you didn't, a thumbs down is perfectly fine. I'm hoping you guys are getting what you want out of it, but if you're not, you have to let me know. Don't feel bad about saying thumbs down. You're not giving me what I want to know. And then, if you do that, if you actually give me the thumbs down, let me know in the comments what I did wrong. All right, guys? I am doing these not for me. I know how to do this already. I'm doing this for you guys. So what I want you to do is make sure that if I'm doing something that you don't understand in some way, you let me know down in the comments. All right? So thumbs up, thumbs down, comments down below, and if you haven't done so, please take a few seconds to subscribe. Have yourselves a wonderful day, everyone.